This is Andrew England, the Financial Times Southern Africa Bureau Chief. We're at the Saxon Hotel in Johannesburg, where we just had a very successful breakfast in partnership with HP, looking at the convergence of the digital and the customer experience, essentially looking at how businesses are harnessing digital technology to better serve their customers and also to develop their businesses. I think that some of the key issues that came out of the breakfast was that, one, digitalisation is happening. It's happening here, it's happening in South Africa, and it's happening across South Africa. And companies do have to embrace it, and if they don't, then they're going to be found wanting. At the same time, one of the key challenges is how companies stay ahead of the development of new technologies. It's happening at such a pace that one of the key challenges is making sure that you stay abreast of the changes. And then there's a developmental side that was raised, and how the development of technology can help African states actually leapfrog certain stages of development. And one of the main issues we discussed was the use of mobile phone technology and how that's working from East Africa to West Africa in terms of money transfers, in terms of information exchange, etc. And we're seeing increasing mobile phone penetration across the continent. So how can that be harnessed? So I think overall we kind of looked at the general concept that digitalisation is something that really is making a difference on the continent. And now it's a question of how companies actually look to utilise that for their own benefit, but also for their customers' benefits.
Certainly it can. The issue of where digital technology will go going forward in terms of economic development in Africa and in emerging economies is that what it does do is allow the leapfrogging of the lack of physical infrastructure. And that's the key motivator, in my view, of where and why we should be looking at digital technologies. Obviously, a key issue around digital technologies is the fact that, yes, it enables communication and enables financial value transfer, but you still have to be able to deliver good physical content as, in effect, the value that people want. But yes, it is the motivator, it is the catalyst for economic development in emerging markets. It'll bring communities closer, it'll provide that bridge that we don't necessarily have now in terms of the lack of physical infrastructure. Absolutely critical in my view. I think as we are right now, the CMO influences decisions. Traditionally within business, everything devolves down to what happens in the balance sheet, what happens in the profit and loss statement. Does a decision maker have access to a budget? Does a decision influencer have access to a budget? And right now, there's a fair amount of hype in the marketplace about the new role of the CMO as a decision maker. We're not there right now. They influence decisions. They understand value propositions. They articulate that. They have access to analytics about where the market is going, what your customers want. But until such time as they have a discrete budget and are measured on the financial results of the company in the same way as, say, a line of business leader or the CIO, in other words, discrete measurements that one can see quite clearly in terms of rands and cents, dollars and cents, they are really only an influencer. A very strong influencer, hopefully, but certainly an influencer, not a decision maker. At the end of the day.
So the digital officer is a role that's been introduced in the last couple of years, and the challenge is it's not a really well-defined role, but most organizations see it as something that's transformational, so its existence is short-lived. And I guess the key point is more around what is it that it's fulfilling, right? So I mentioned that it's transformational, but it's more around focusing on a digital strategy and trying to get the organization to move into a digital economy more than anything else, right? So the question is the digital transformation officer needed more than anything else, or can it be fulfilled through collaboration by, let's say, the CIO and the CMO together? Because ultimately, those are the two driving forces, right? So the chief marketing officer who understands the customer, knows the customer, and the CIO has got to make that happen through the digital technology that's available to him. So the CDO, yes, it's a role that's needed, but it may not be fulfilled by a person, let's say, but as a strategy going forward, it's something that needs to be focused on for certain. In essence, that drive behind how technology changes is based on two things. One, around the customer. So the customer's adoption of technology is also going to drive an organization to want to change, whether it be in the mobility space, whether it be an alternative medium through a social mechanism, it doesn't matter. And the second is through a level of analysis, right? So there has to be some level of investigation that happens to say the market is changing, the technology that customers are using to interface with us is changing, and thus we need to look at changing. And that's kind of what it boils down to.
The overriding conclusion was you do have to invest, and you might not always see that return, but you've got to be looking to the future. You've got to be looking to develop your offerings to the future, your technologies to the future. So you are just going to have to be utilising the technology and not always going to see that return immediately.